Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel. My name is Domenica DeTavio and I'm the Brand Relationship Manager here at Fractl. Today I'm going to be interviewing two of our most senior team members, Chris Lewis and Andrea Basse, on tangential content and why it can be a good idea for brands in seemingly boring or niche verticals. Before we start, let's talk a little bit about what Chris and Andrea do in their day-to-day at Fractl. Chris, would you tell us a little bit about your role as a creative at Fractl?
Sure. So it all starts with thinking of creative ideas for our clients. From there, I find unique data sets, or I make my own unique data sets through surveys. And after that, it's a matter of data visualization, creating a story out of that data, and presenting a unique piece of content.
Awesome. And what about you, Andrea? What does a day in the life of an account manager look like?
Day to day, I just kind of make sure I'm managing our clients' workflow, whether they have one project or 4 in production. What I try to do is make sure that someone like Chris is running the surveys and getting the data we need. From there, kind of putting together a narrative and seeing what the campaign will tell. And then once he has the campaign, relay that to our promotions associates, and then from there kind of put together an outreach strategy that makes sense for whatever the client's goals are.
Great, so today we're going to be talking about tangential content and its potential for producing huge wins for brands or businesses with a limited audience for brand-centric content. First, Chris, how would you define tangential content?
So tangential content is basically a piece of content that doesn't directly relate to a client or business's key business or key focus.
So hypothetically, can you give me some examples of what would be considered tangential content?
So some examples of tangential content would be something like a car insurance company taking a germ swab of steering wheels and seeing how germy they are, or a personal finance company seeing how millennials are spending their money on video games.
Andrea, part of your role as an account manager is to help clients understand why we come up with certain content marketing campaign ideas and how we envision those ideas coming to life. Why do we sometimes choose tangential content ideas over more on-brand ideas, and what does that process look like?
Great question. I think when we first visit when we first start our ideation process for a client, the bigger question that we kind of ask initially is, what are your goals? Especially if you're trying to generate as many links as possible, the suggestion we would offer is taking the tangential content route. Our reasoning behind that is if you're wanting to acquire more links, you definitely want to be able to cast a bigger net. If you focus with content that more is on brand and specific and niche to your target audience, you're not going to be able to kind of reach the eyes of newer consumers that aren't necessarily already aware of your brand or the services that you offer. If you produce something, for instance, within the personal finance vertical, say your service is credit cards, and you want to kind of expand your reach beyond the personal finance vertical, one thing we would suggest is kind of in the ideation process, where else do we use credit cards for? Beyond there, you can kind of come up with, if you go to sporting events, if you travel, what you do at the grocery store, anything like that. Those are other tangential related ideas that can propel your content into that much larger of an audience. And again, help you get those links that you're trying to look for.
Both of you have a lot of experience with pitching clients tangential content ideas and then executing them all the way through. Can you walk us through a campaign that stands out in your mind?
Sure. So one great example of a time tangential content really worked, we were doing a campaign for our client Porsche.com. They are home services professionals. They set you up with contractors and those types of things. Anyway, I was sitting in this meeting and thinking about what types of content I would look at. What do I do in my home? Nothing that related, I don't fix things, I don't know how to fix things, but I do know how to cook, and that's something I like to do in my home. So I started thinking, I wonder who else is like me, what other millennial men are like me that can cook. So we ran a survey asking people, what can you cook? And the results of the survey came back that almost half of millennials couldn't cook a chicken, or 25% or 20% of millennials didn't know how to make break and bake cookies. And then we looked and we said, what is this item? And it was a picture of a butter knife, and they didn't know what that was either, so a third of millennials missed that. Anyway, it generated these awesome headlines that then we were able to pitch to publishers that really succeeded.
Andrea, what was the process for promoting that piece to get big wins like the Washington Post and The View?
Great question. When we, to Chris's point, I think one of the biggest things that stood out with that campaign, we see a lot of traction when it comes to the generational comparisons. A lot of people, unfortunately, still like to hate on millennials. And so from there, when we put it into promotions, kind of something that I think differentiates Fractl from other agencies is we sit the creatives down with the promotions associate, whoever will be pitching that campaign. In that case, Chris was sitting down with one of our top promotions associates, and they were discussing, here's 5 to 10 statistics that we think are really interesting for the campaign. From there, that's when we kind of look for the higher DA sites that have kind of the much larger audiences. In this case, one that we targeted and were successful with was the Washington Post. The big thing, again, that we saw a huge hook from was the 1/3 of millennials could not identify a butter knife. And from there, it kind of spiraled to a huge amount of publications. And like you mentioned earlier, ended up getting a segment on The View where Whoopi Goldberg talked about it for about 5 to 10 minutes. So that was pretty cool.
Millennials just hit another milestone. They are apparently the worst cooks of any generation. Now, this is according to a self-reported survey. They can't seem to follow just those 2-minute recipes people post online. Now, do they just not want to cook? Is it, do they need to know how to cook?
They said they're only moderately prepared to prepare pre-made cookie dough.
What?
Again, Porch, they are a site that helps connect home contractors with homeowners whenever they need a project they're working on. You might not necessarily think they would be the experts in who knows about a butter knife, but from there we kind of made sure to tie it back to the client always, that said, when you are cooking, here's kind of what you need to be mindful of when you are in your kitchen to make sure it's safe.
And what's really cool about this is there's actually some data to back it up. We recently did a study posted on Moz that showed that tangential content earns up to 30% more media mentions and 77% more social shares on average than branded content.
So that's all we have for today. Chris, Andrea, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today and educate our viewers on some of the benefits of tangential content.
Cool, thanks for having us.
You got it.
So that's all we have for today. Thanks for watching, and if you liked this video, please feel free to give us a thumbs up or subscribe to our channel. And if you have any comments, questions, or thoughts, you can leave them in the comments below or reach out to me directly at domenica@frac.tl. Thanks for watching.